Welcome to Canvas of the Heart, presented by Free Arts for Abused Children of Arizona. The mission of Free Arts is to transform children's trauma to resilience through the arts. This show is a collection of conversations that spotlight the ways Free Arts creates hope for children and teens who've experienced abuse, neglect, or homelessness. We hope you find this show to be informative, inspiring, and fun. All right, and we're back to Canvas of the Heart. And we are turning the table again a little bit in this episode. We have Jenna, joined today by Erina, to talk about a particular program here at Free Arts. So welcome to you both.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's exciting here to, like I said, turn the tables and ask you some difficult questions. No.
Yes, in the hot seat. I'm ready.
No, this will be good. When we talk about programs at Free Arts, often we talk about some core programs, but today we're talking about a program that is taking shape. It is expanding and it's kind of discovering a new place to serve because of a growing need. And so we'd like to talk about the Resilient Roots program. And to do so, the coordinator here, Erina, has joined us for the podcast today. So could you tell us a little bit about your journey to Free Arts, your staff journey? And I need to tell the audience, as we're recording this, today's your 7th anniversary. So congratulations for that.
Congratulations.
Yes, that is super exciting. And I love how Free Arts, the Free Arts universe just aligns things in such a great way, because I can't think of a better way to celebrate this 7th year than by talking about this new expansion program. I started towards the end of 2016. I joined the programs team as a coordinator for the Free Arts Day program. And I was there I assisted with that for my first 3 years at Free Arts. And then I transferred over to operations for a couple of years. I got to learn and support that department for, like I said, for 2 years. And then I am back with programs as one of the senior program coordinators for a couple of our expansion programs.
Well, we're very lucky to have you on the team, so we're glad you're here and joining us today. I'm wondering if you could start us off by telling us, and this is for both of you, about what we're calling Resilient Roots here at Free Arts.
Yes, so Resilient Roots is a program that was born specifically to serve unaccompanied minors within our community. The organization Free Arts has had ongoing relationships with different agencies who serve this population, but we really felt the need to bring something very specific to these children, these minors. And I think a lot of that came from understanding or wanting to understand how important culture is to building resilience. I think we understand that there's a lot of mental health components that come along with being an unaccompanied minor. And if we don't understand it, there are several mental health components with being alone, being here, trying to navigate a completely new country, trying to understand new cultural norms. But there's a part of it where as you get comfortable in your new surroundings, there's a part of you that kind of gets lost in that. Your culture of origin, the culture that gave you your spirituality, that gave you your bases, that gave you the norms and your values. And we think that it's very important to be able to honor that and to honor those experiences and to honor what it was that initially shaped and molded you. And we want to bring that into the programming that we offer, because we recognize one's culture really does help with the ability to withstand adversity.
Yeah, take us back to the phrase you use, an unaccompanied minor. What is that?
Yeah, so an unaccompanied minor usually refers to anyone that's a refugee or a parolee or someone that's an asylee or asylum seeking. So when we say unaccompanied minors, it's someone that either crossed the border by themselves coming into the United States, or while they were here, sometimes we have certain children who their parents might have to leave or return to another country, or either their country or a different country for whatever reason. But the basis is that they're here by themselves. So that's what it means to be an unaccompanied minor here. And it is a specific class of an immigrant population. So we work with unaccompanied minors in different areas in terms of getting them into school, getting them healthcare, whatever it is that they might be needing that might have brought them to the United States. We have a lot of unaccompanied minors with really significant health conditions. So that might be one of their needs that needs to be handled here. But that's what it means to be an unaccompanied minor.
Okay. Thank you for that. So, Erina, you're done a lot of things in programs. I wonder if you could walk us through how Resilient Roots started to develop, how it started to take shape. What was it responding to?
Yeah, so we, as Jenna mentioned, we do have wonderful partnerships with agencies that serve, that meet all of those needs that Jenna just mentioned: medical, education, those main basic needs. And through our partnership with these agencies, we found that we needed to meet a critical situation. Being a border state, this situation will always be part of Arizona, part of our community. It is serving a specific vulnerable population group of children. Unaccompanied minors are children under the age of 18. So children under the age of 18 are going to be part of the living at the shelters and at the organizations that we partner with. So throughout, we had the opportunity of doing some of our programs, facilitating some of our programs specifically for unaccompanied minors. Recently, we started receiving more requests from our partner agencies, from partner agencies in the community that we don't have a partnership established with, agencies in the community that we don't have a partnership established with yet, but we started receiving more and more requests of how can we join forces in order to bring resources to this specific population of vulnerable children. It's meeting specific needs such as language. Language is, I would say, one of the main areas that we want to be able to add to our core programs in order to meet that huge need, because that is our language, especially our primary language, is part of our identity, part of our culture, and through their journey, they've had to, their voice sometimes gets silenced, not only because of the circumstances, but because of that language barrier. So it is, it is something that we have started, but now we are going to be able to fully develop, and we encourage. I mean, it's part of being able to encourage those cultural aspects. It's part of the language, the customs, the bringing intentional art activities that will help build that resilience. What's going to be important as far as continuing the development of this program.
When you think about the partner agencies that are approaching you and then the participants themselves, what are some of the unique experiences that are showing up when we do these programs? What's their life been like? So
we are meeting and learning, interacting with children from all over the world. Just in the last couple of months, we've met children from Senegal, from Bangladesh, from throughout Central and South America. So being able to meet them where they're at is important. Being able to understand that if we don't have an interpreter for their specific language, that we have, whether it's equipment, whatever it takes in order to make them feel welcome, to make them feel seen and heard. So as far as the circumstances and what they have been through, that here at Free Arts, we talk a lot about, we share with our community at-risk childhood experiences. And the questionnaire alone for adverse childhood experiences has 10 questions. Most of the children that are participating in the Resilient Roots program have a score of 8 or above. And those experiences, that journey, what led them to come to a different country away from their immediate family, their parents, what they know, reflects in the art that they share. But yes, we see children that we can't just, and this is for all of the children that we serve here at Free Arts, we can't just assume that if we give, let's say, a spoken word activity, that every single child, even if they're older teens, are going to be able to read and write and do things that unintentionally, like we just say, oh, well, this child I was told is 13, and here, go ahead and write an artist statement. And the child looks at you and just shakes their head and shuts down, because all of what we think should be part of a child's life more than likely has not been part of the upbringing of the children that we work with.
So there has to be sometimes a pretty individual approach to working with each, and we're encountering different languages. And then you talked about an ACEs score, so 8 or 9 is on the higher end of that scale. For our audience, what are the kind of things you're answering yes or no to on the ACEs score, or the ACEs test?
Yeah, so you're answering yes or no to, you're talking about like physical abuse, verbal abuse, you're talking about neglect, so different sorts of violence, domestic violence, the exposure to or the actual experience of. You're talking about even sexual abuse. We know trafficking is very big, unfortunately, especially with those crossing the border by themselves, very, very vulnerable to those types of experiences. So these are some of the things that they may be checking yes to regarding what they've witnessed or what they've personally experienced prior to coming.
And so they're here, they're looking for someplace safe, they're looking for someplace to live. Yeah. And entering the immigration system to hopefully have some kind of case settlement over time, right? Yes. One of the facts I think is important for people to put into context is that often the young people in the shelters, the living environments that are supporting unaccompanied minors, they're only temporary. And often the young person's able to transition to some form of foster care, which is often with a family member. But that transition itself, it can be pretty difficult, and some of the children make it here on their own. This is not a guided path by an adult. And that's, I think, a significant thing that I hope for our listeners, and I know for you too, motivates us to be compassionate about how we are kind of entering the space and working with and learning, how do we work with this this person who's in front of me that might have different set of skills that, we might judge on one level and say it's not age appropriate, but this is a whole different cultural experience and a different set of resources. So I'm curious, when you come back to things like what we do for projects in art and languages, what steps are you taking in the program to kind of individualize that and make sure everyone can be part of the activities?
I know some of the things that we do. I think, well, before I even say that, when you're working with unaccompanied minors or anyone in this population, it's like what you know as normal really goes out the window. And you're right. It does have to be a very individualized approach. And we use the wonderful world of technology, to assist with the communication. But that's one of the beautiful things about art is that you don't always have to verbalize it. It's one of those things where you can act it out, you can model it, and they can follow. And art is like a universal language. So I think that's one of the beauties of it and why it's so impactful with this particular program, with these particular individuals, this population, is because you don't always have to rely on the language. You use it to answer any questions that they may have, but when you can model it, that's really what it is. And we communicate through that. And when you have individuals who are doing some type of clay, like the clay in the modeling. And when we saw that what they were doing was taking shape, was really taking form, everybody was appreciative of what they saw and just marveled at how beautiful their work was. And nobody needed to use any interpretation to convey, this is excellent. Like, you put in a lot of work. Like, wow, you did that. Nobody needed an interpreter for that. And so I think we get so caught up in trying to make sure that we're so clear that we forget that we can relate to one another without all speaking the same language.
It's powerful, right? It's the power of art there. So I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what some of the recent activities have looked like. So if we had come to an exhibit, what would we have seen? And I'm hoping we can share some of those photos as we publicize this episode, but what have they been like?
So the last couple of weeks, now going into a couple of months, have been extremely exciting for this particular program. We had the opportunity of working with 7 children from various countries through one of our core programs, our Professional Artist Series. Before going a little bit more into what we've done just these last few weeks, I want to be able to share it. Our expansion programs have been such a huge opportunity for adding to the success of the success of the structure that our core programs have. So it's adding to a professional artist series in order to meet the needs of this specific population, adding to a free arts day to meet the needs of our families in our community. So it's taking all of our core programs, our 4 core programs, and just adding to the structure that they already have. So like I was saying, through the Professional Artist Series that just ended a couple of weeks ago, we had the opportunity of working with 7 children, 7 youth, from one of our unaccompanied minor agencies, partner agencies. We had a child from Senegal, a child from Bangladesh, a child from Venezuela, a child from Mexico, Guatemala, and Honduras. So it was an experience of everybody took the process differently and started and ended differently. It was an opportunity to work with a teaching artist on visual arts, and it was an opportunity of also collaborating with the Phoenix Art Museum. So starting off the first session of 5 with a tour of the museum. For most of the youth that participated, it was their very first time visiting a museum. For most of the youth that attended that night, it was their first time figuring out why are there artist statements and what's the purpose of the artist statement. We had the pleasure of meeting a couple of the artists at the museum that had exhibits that there, and that was a highlight. So kicking off that series in that way added to the creating of safety and welcoming all of the children that were going to participate. So the following 3 sessions. They worked with teaching artist Emily Costello, learning how to use mixed media, how to create a visual arts piece. And little by little, that transformation, that letting themselves express through their art projects without the need of everybody at the table knowing the same language. They supported each other. They rooted each other on. They were able to celebrate with everybody that came together for those 5 sessions, with Emily, with everybody from the museum, from staff and volunteers that were involved. So it was seeing all of that process take shape little by little, session after session. On the last and 5th session, we were able to celebrate here at Parsons Place with all of the children actually, let me rewind a bit. With most of the children that had started the series, a couple of the children the weekend before had been reunified or moved to long-term foster care placement. So unfortunately, they were not able to be part of that celebration, but their artwork was part of the exhibit. It was part of the celebration. Their artwork represented them in such a beautiful way, along with their artist statements. So that's one of the ways we've been able to interact with children through the Resilient Roots program in the last few weeks. And also, we kicked off Creativity Nights. So Creativity Nights are going to be an opportunity to bring children here to Parsons Place, specifically from our partner agencies that serve unaccompanied minors, and have art projects that will resonate with them. That they, for example, the art project that we did earlier this month at the beginning of September, we worked with clay. So it was, here is a clay project that we can do, and this is something we can make. This is an example, but go ahead and use your creativity. And they sure did. Mm-hmm. They definitely did. And it was a beautiful experience at the end when we did our closing, because we had at least 4 different languages that night. Mm-hmm. And everybody that felt comfortable enough got to share their piece, what they made with the clay, and they got to say the name in their native language of what it is, what they made. And then everybody went around and sharing, oh, well, that's how it's said in French, this is how you say it in Spanish, and this is how you say it in English. And it was just a contribution of languages and culture that made that night also exciting. But the way to make that happen was through art, was through an intentional art project. So Creativity Nights are going to be a huge part of this expansion program, mm-hmm. because this is how we will be able to create a space for children to be brought here. Yeah.
How do volunteers fit into what you're offering?
Yeah, so that is going to be also something that we want to be able to continue to grow that relationship with our bilingual volunteers, our community of bilingual volunteers. And this is a request and encouragement for all volunteers, right? As Jenna said earlier, the beauty of art is we don't need to be expert artists, and we don't need to have a variety of language under our belts, right? Because we are compassionate mentors. We are mentors that show up for our children. It is going to be a huge plus for the Resilient Roots program to have volunteers that speak another language, because that adds to the safety factor. That adds to a child being part of a program or participating in activities and sitting with someone that will speak to them in their language. So that adds to a positive experience. it's going to be, as with all of our programs, there's no way we could do what we do without the support of our volunteers.
Right. So when we talk about wanting some bilingual help, we are open to any help. So English speakers only are still welcome. Spanish, French, what other languages?
Portuguese, Arabic, Dari, Pashto.
Okay.
Yes, those Swahili.
So those are opportunities too. If you have
Yes.
that as a part of your volunteer skills,
Yes.
like, we'd love to talk to you.
Yes.
Exactly, because Phoenix in general, well, Arizona, but Phoenix definitely has a large refugee population here. We have multiple resettlement organizations that are here. And so we're always looking for people who have these skills, and they're around. And it may not be you directly, but if you know someone, we welcome everyone who has the heart to want to do this work. And so if you want to bring your friend who you know speaks any of these languages, maybe even a language that we currently don't know that, is in need right now, we welcome it.
Excellent. What's been so far your favorite program activity you've offered, and what did the participants have to say about it?
Yeah, it has been a pleasure and very much a privilege to be able to assist with the facilitation of our core programs and any opportunities that we've had as an organization to bring these programs to the specific population of children. I definitely have enjoyed the various professional artist series that I've been a part of, and I am very, very much looking forward to our creativity nights. They take a life of its own, and we don't know. We bring the art supplies, we bring the intentional art projects, but they bring the creativity, so they make it their own, definitely.
Excellent.
I love the creativity nights, but I would have to say the professional artist series, especially the last one that we just did. There was one in particular that just really struck me. All of them were magnificent, but there was one that mentioned their journey through the jungles and their experience to get here. And it was just so profound because the major prompt to that professional artist series was, what is your spirit animal? So you saw that, and then you saw how they put themselves in the work that they produced, and you saw, and it kind of gave you insight into how they viewed themselves and their abilities and their own strength with the animals that they chose. So it was just so wonderful to see. So I'm really grateful to see more opportunities for the professional artist series. I think we recognize that certain populations respond better to some of our programs than they do others. And the professional artist series seems to be really impactful with this population.
As we're closing up, I'd like to go back to something you said in the beginning, which was about culture, and that there's a cultural connection piece that we're wanting to be very intentional about Resilient Roots. Can you tell us what that looks like in practice and why it's important?
Yes. I will say one of the reasons why it's important is because it actually came from a documentary that was produced a while ago, and I've referenced it several times with anybody who I talk to about the Resilient Roots program. And it's actually about a gentleman, a Native American man, and his experience in the boarding schools. And as he was saying he was detailing his experiences, and he was crying, and the words just escaped me because I was like, it was just powerful. I guess is the best way to word being able to hear that experience. The one thing that he said that was just so profound was that, it was such a difficult time for him because he lost his native tongue, his language. And then he said, usually what happens when somebody is in distress, they call on whatever their higher power is, whatever their source of strength is, whether that's spirituality or religion, whatever it is, they might call on something beyond themselves. And he said he felt that he couldn't connect with his ancestors or his spirits anymore because they don't speak English. And that's the importance of what it is that we're trying to do here, is that we want them to remain connected, because we understand that our customs and our norms are not theirs. And they may need something different that we may not fully understand in order to go through this process that they're going through. And so what that could look like in practice is that we honor their language. And what it looks like is that we honor their customs. If we know that religion is important to them, then we take into consideration those holy days. And so we're not doing our programming on those days, or we're taking into consideration those dietary restrictions that are tied into what it is. All of these are components into how we incorporate that into practice. Whether it is asking for permission for certain things, wanting to learn more about their culture. These are the ways that we practice honoring who they are and what and the values that they're coming with into the space, and allowing them to take whatever art project is in the front of them and adding whatever they need to it that makes it their own, that makes it something meaningful to them, that gives them that source of resilience building that they need.
It is something that we take for granted when you assume that your culture is everyone else's. And that part of change, part of moving, part of needing to move for your own safety adds all of those extra pieces of attachment. So that we're desperate to replace, right?
Yeah, it's big, because if we don't, we have individuals who they learn so much about this culture, but then it could lead to such a significant identity crisis because they become conflicted. That impacts self-esteem. Who am I really? This is what I grew up knowing and grew up being, and now this is different. And so we have to be able to give them space to explore those things and to be who it is that they want to be. We may only be with them for a short time, but the resilience lasts a lifetime.
Well, that's a great note for us to end on. So thank you both for being here, Erina and Jenna, and the work you do here. This is recruiting volunteers. It's expanding its programming. We're looking for some very special people who want to devote some time here. So this is something we'd love to hear from our audience about. If this is striking an important note with you, we'd love to work with you to provide these opportunities at Free Art. So thank you all for joining us on Canvas of the Heart. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and be back for our future episodes where we talk more about our work and our programs. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Canvas of the Heart. We'd love to hear your questions and feedback by email at hello@freeartsaz.org. You can find more information about Free Arts by visiting our website at freeartsaz.org. We'd like to thank the many individual and corporate donors and the hundreds of volunteers that make Free Arts programs possible. Take care, and we will talk to you soon.